everybody, and welcome back to the Bay Bulls channel for this episode of Quick Strike. We are back. We haven't done a Quick Strike episode in a little while, but the playoffs are underway, so we got to recap one of these games, which Michael, I think, is the best series in the NHL right now. Hello, everybody. My name is Jake Ricker, as always, and with me is my co-host Michael Wax. Michael, how you doing today?
After last night's game, I'm doing just great. This is going to be a fun game to recap.
There's no question about that. There's a lot of eyes on this series, and for obvious reasons, because this is a very fun one to watch. I think a lot of people are enjoying this. But let's get into this game recap right away because there's a lot to talk about in this game. There was a lot that happened. So, starting off in the first period, I thought the Lightning they played good at the beginning of this first period, but then they kind of struggled towards the end of it. At the end of one, the Lightning were trailing in this one at the end of the first period. Michael, what were your thoughts on the first period overall?
Just to echo your sentiments, I thought they played really well within the first 10 minutes. They were really controlling play. They had that shorthanded goal, I believe, was in that 10 minutes. And then they just started playing what the Panthers wanted them to play. They were being physical. They were getting themselves into penalty trouble. And ultimately, that cost them in the first period. Carter Verhaeghe, of course, continues his torrid goal scoring pace against the Lightning because we don't resign one guy and that one guy ends up torturing us for years to come. It happened with Marceau. Now it's happening with Carter Verhaeghe. But ultimately, I thought the Lightning were okay in that first period, but it definitely was a tale of two halves.
Yeah, that's a good point because the shorthanded goal by Blake Coleman was huge for the Lightning, but we do need to talk about on that power play. Florida did score a third goal where it could have potentially been 3-1, but the goal was called off and it was called for goalie interference. Now, it wasn't a penalty because nobody ran into the goalie, but as the puck was heading towards the left side of the post, one of the Florida Panthers players kind of pushed Vasilevsky's pad, which pushed him off the post and let the puck go in. It was immediately waved off and said no goal. There was no challenge. I don't think it's actually reviewable at that point, if I'm not mistaken. But Michael, when I first saw this, I thought, okay, yeah, maybe there's something happened here. And then I saw the replay and I went, I don't know. It kind of looked like a goal to me when I was first looking at it. I've looked at it a couple more times, and I'm trying to look at this as unbiased as possible because I am a Lightning fan, so I am biased. I will admit that right away. But let me get your thoughts on it because I thought this probably could have been a goal. I was kind of surprised that it was that quickly disallowed, but there was contact with Vasilevsky, and the Lightning were all over it as soon as that goal happened. They were pointing at the referee saying, "No way, that's a goal."
Yeah, and just a quick correction, that Blake Coleman goal was actually the first goal of the game. And this play before actually happened right before the goal itself, the
Right.
quick momentum swing.
Correct.
Ultimately, honestly, I had the reverse opinion as you. When I saw it originally, I was like, I don't know if there's anything to call right there. And then as the replay started showing, he ultimately did make contact with Andre Vasilevsky. Now, say what you want about Andre Vasilevsky's positioning and whether or not the puck was even there and whether or not he could stop it. But if you make contact with the goaltender, ultimately that prevents the goaltender from making the save. And we talk about it all the time. And, again, we try to take our bias out of this when we're looking at this objectively. But there have been situations where there have been goals that have been taken back from the Lightning where we go, oh, the goaltender would have never made the save, even with the contact. Well, that ultimately is not the point. The point of this is if there is contact, the goaltender is never going to make the save. So you have to make those types of calls. And I thought at the end of the day, it was really a 50-50 call. As a Lightning fan, I'm going to say it's the correct call. But again, if it was a goal, I don't think a lot of people would have been upset about it. It was not a goal. I don't think a ton of people were upset about it. It was really a 50-50 toss up.
Right. It was mostly Florida Panther fans that I think were upset about it, which rightfully so. If we were in that situation, I guarantee you we'd be kind of giving refs a little bit of a hard time about it. But it was definitely close. You're right. I think 50-50 is a good way to put it. But let's talk about the second period, because the second period was completely different from the first. The second period was all Lightning. They played a fantastic second period, in my opinion. It was also what I would like to call the Nikita Kucherov period. Nikita Kucherov back in the lineup, game number one. Cue all the Tampa Bay Lightning are cheating tweets or posts, whatever you want to call it, because we are over the cap. Nikita Kucherov was 100% healthy this whole time. I digress, though. I'm not going to get into that. But Kucherov looked fantastic in this game. A lot of people were wondering, how is Kucherov going to be? Is he going to be 100%? Is he going to be at 50%? He was at a 200%, I think, in this game. He looked absolutely fantastic. He scored both goals in this period, but a great period from the Tampa Bay Lightning, and ultimately take a 3-2 lead at the end of the two periods here.
Yeah, the period itself was actually a really, really solid period from the Lightning. Even if you take away the goals, I thought Andre Vasilevsky was spectacular. He made a couple of grade A saves on some grade A chances. The defense was okay. A couple of people had rough nights. Victor Hedman and Mikhail Sergachev, to be more precise. Ryan McDonagh also had a bit of a questionable hit. The entire left side of the defense was not fantastic this period and in this game, but you're absolutely right. The forwards were really pushing play. The power play finally has some finishers on it, which is something that we have basically been asking for since around game 40 is, can somebody please score a power play goal? And now that you have Nikita Kucherov, you can score a power play goal because everybody's focused on Steven Stamkos. Braden Point did a fantastic job along the boards getting puck possession on both of those goals and allowing for Kucherov to do his thing, which he's Nikita Kucherov. Why won't you cover him? I'm not complaining, but it just doesn't make any sense.
Well, they're not covering because they're trying to deal with Steven Stamkos and Braden Point. It's just you can't do it.
Exactly.
It's so thin. Let's talk about, though. There is another power play goal later in this game, which we'll get to, and kind of talks about this too. But that power play, we talked about this. We had a decent power play. The Lightning did for the most part of the season for what it was, without Stamkos, without Kucherov. The Lightning have never had to deal without having both guys. They for the last, I mean, since the playoffs last year, we've had either Nikita Kucherov or Steven Stamkos out, and not on that power play. So we haven't had a power play with both Stamkos and Kucherov in forever, and you can tell how much of an instant difference it makes on that power play. Because again, as you mentioned, Panthers can barely cover Stamkos and Braden Point, and Nikita Kucherov gets left open. He said it's such a wicked shot that he'll put the puck right in the back of the net. There's a goal later in this game, which we'll get to, where Kucherov completely fakes out the Panthers defense. They think he's going to take a slap shot, passes the puck right into the slot. It's a completely different power play, and it's going to be a big issue for the Panthers if they keep taking penalties, because I don't know how they could defend this power play.
Yeah, and what I would say to that, just to counteract it, is you can't rely on your power play.
Of
Like
course.
the Lightning scored 5 goals tonight. 3 of them came in the power play. 1 of them came shorthanded. That means you had one 5-on-5 goal. I thought they played pretty decently at 5-on-5. You're going to have to capitalize on those opportunities. You just can't rely on those opportunities. And they did a great job of getting 3 power play goals. But ultimately, as much as I'd like to see the power play succeed, and I'm happy to see it succeed in the first round because we did not see it succeed in the first round in either 2020 or 2019, I would much rather have solid 5-on-5 play where Kucherov and Stamkos are providing for those lines, ultimately helping out their line mates like an Anthony Cirelli, who's been on a horrible goalless streak. I think it's up to 24 games now.
You did almost
Get
have
him
a
a
goal.
goal, please. Like, please get him a goal. Get some confidence. He had some really good opportunities tonight or last night, but he's just not there, and he's not getting power play time unless the second unit is on, and he's barely on the second unit. So I'm very happy to see that the first unit is back and clicking. You can put some guys back down a peg. AVB is now out of the lineup, but Andre Palat might be on the second unit. Alex Killorn might be on the second unit. Tyler Johnson might be on the second unit. Yanni Gord might be on the second unit. Mikhail Sergachev is now going to be on the second unit again after being on the first unit for the last couple of games. That's a huge power play as your second unit. So again, just to go back to what I said at the beginning, capitalize on your opportunities, but don't rely on them.
Right, you're absolutely right. But let's talk about the third period going into this one. Lightning leading it 3-2 felt pretty good, and this was kind of similar to the first period, except it was kind of the reverse this time, where the Florida Panthers came out and played fantastic. At the start of this third period, they went and scored 2 goals in the third to take the lead ultimately at that point, and it looked like this could be an issue for the Lightning here in this third period. It looked like a bit of a collapse was happening almost, but the Tampa Bay Lightning did eventually turn it around, and specifically, it was the guy who is always so clutch in the playoffs. I kind of have a new conspiracy, Michael, that I think there's 2 different Braden Points. They just swap them out for the playoffs because Braden Point scores 2 goals at the end, towards the end of this game. He scores one on the power play and then scores a breakaway goal with a minute 44. By the way, if you haven't seen the calls of that from Dave Mishkin or Dave Randorf, I will try to link those below. Highly recommend checking them out. They are awesome. But Braden Point scores the Lightning with 144 left on the breakaway, and the Lightning ultimately go on to win this game by a score of 5-4 and take a 1-0 series lead.
Yeah, just giving some credit where it's due. Jonathan Huberdeau took over that third period for the Panthers, at least in the first half. He was instrumental on both of their goals in the third period. He also had a first period assist on the first goal of the game for the Panthers. He is someone that the Lightning are going to have to look out for this entire series. Whether Victor Hedman has that assignment, whether it's a forward like Yanni Gord that has that assignment, he's going to destroy you. And you have to contain him. He's just like Alexander Barkov, just like Anthony Duclair, Carver Hagee, Owen Tippett scored on the Lightning in this game. You're going to have to find ways to beat those guys and match up well against them. That's ultimately up to Coach Cooper. And today, give credit where it's due. After that fourth goal, shut it down. The Panthers really didn't have that many opportunities at the end of the game. The power play goal with Braden Point, just so good. That power play was fantastic, and the fact that we have tried setting up that passing play so many times in the regular season, and it never worked. And then when Kucherov comes in the lineup, it finally starts to work because he's so quick with his hands. That is exactly what we're looking for, and that's how you generate goals. And then the breakaway goal, my God, like you say, we have 2 different Braden Points. I disagree because he's amazing every single game.
It's true.
But also, I kind of agree because he turned it up to 12 in this game. Like, he was even better. How is this possible for him to be so good at scoring goals in the playoffs? Because we saw what happened last year, and he's doing it again.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, and then the crazier thing too about that Braden Point goal is he had a breakaway earlier in this game and missed it. Was just kind of trying to go to the outside, and then Braden Point does it again, and this time goes 5 hole and puts it in the back of the net, and the Lightning ultimately win this game 5-4. So I do want to talk about a couple other things though. Now that we've kind of recapped the game here, first let's talk about the 2 big hits in this game that drew a lot of attention. So first of all, there was the Ryan McDonagh hit on Anthony Duclair, which was, I'll link the hit below so you can go check it out for yourself and make your own opinion. It was definitely a boarding call, which is what the call was made. McDonagh got a 2-minute penalty for it because, Duclair did go head first into the boards. McDonagh did see numbers, but I think the referees even specifically said if you watch their hand motion, the referee kind of does something like this, which shout out to the hockey guy who's the one who explained this very well, which basically means he turned at the last second, which is why this wasn't a match penalty, at least in game. But a lot of people didn't love that hit. Before I get the other hit, Michael, your thoughts on this one?
It's not a good hit. Like, I'm really surprised that he's not even getting a hearing. I understand that he got a penalty, but you say what you want about Duclair turning into the hit. He didn't really move. Like, he moved a little bit. I think ultimately this goes back to the George Peros problem, which is that he has no idea what is a clean hit and what is a dirty hit in the NHL. And of course, he's the Department of Player Safety head. So ultimately, he makes the decisions. I'm just very surprised that McDonagh got away with this and is going to be in the lineup for game two. Ultimately, I thought this was going to be a one-game suspension.
Yeah, I agree with you. I it definitely was not a good hit. I did not love the hit whatsoever. I'm glad Duclair seems to be okay because obviously the last thing we want is anybody getting injured. I know even some Florida Panthers fans, they said they want to beat the Lightning at full potential. We want to beat the Florida Panthers at full potential. No one likes to win in those kinds of ways. So yeah, not a great hit from McDonagh, but there is no hearing, so he will not get suspended and will be in the lineup for game one. Hopefully, he doesn't continue to make those mistakes, though, because it's not a good look. But there was another hit that may be biased again, but I think was even worse. And John Cooper called it a predatory hit. And that was the hit on Blake Coleman by Sam Bennett. Sam Bennett was kind of all over in this game. He was very physical, very involved in this game, but he comes from almost like 20 feet away, comes flying in, hits Coleman right from behind in the numbers, kind of similar to the Ryan McDonagh hit, except I think he came from a lot further out. And luckily, there was no injury on this play, but he is having a hearing as we speak right now. I don't think they've made a decision on that quite yet. I'm sure we'll hear about that soon. I will try to maybe link the Twitter decision down below if it comes out by the time this video goes up. Michael, your thoughts on this hit?
It's going to be a $5,000 fine. Like, I don't expect him to be suspended.
Well, you
It's a
never know with
real,
the wheel. They're just going to
yeah,
spin.
the wheel. It's a really bad hit. Like, it's, again, we're trying to be as objective as possible when we do these things. I understand that it might sound like I'm being subjective as a Lightning fan when I say that the Bennett hit is worse than the McDonagh hit. Bennett charged across the ice to try and lay a retaliation hit on Blake Coleman. That's essentially what it was. Now, what caused it? Honestly, I'm not really sure. I don't remember. There was a lot that happened in this game.
There was a lot of
But if
fight.
it was something bad, the Lightning probably got penalized for it or should have been penalized for it at least 2 minutes. Ultimately, the referee's decisions should not make you do these kinds of hits, but ultimately they seem to every single time. Bennett came from all the way on the other side of the circle to lay a hit full charge at someone whose numbers were facing him. Ultimately, that's what it was. If he gets one game, I can kind of see it. But ultimately, I don't think he's going to get suspended because, again, roll the wheel and see what happens.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what the player safety decides. It definitely was not a good hit. Really, you don't want to see either of those hits, the McDonagh hit or the Sam Bennett hit, no matter which one you think is worse. You don't want to see either of those hits in the game. This has been a very fun series. This will be a great series, and a lot of people are hoping this is going to go to 7. I kind of hope that doesn't happen because that's not good for my heart rate. Because even this game, it was really high, but I know a lot of fans are enjoying it. Last of them from the referees, I think I want to talk about on this video already kind of long, and I apologize about that. But there was a lot of penalty call in this game, Michael. There was a lot of 4-on-4 hockey as well. Like the referees kind of just tried to keep it as calm as they could and keep giving penalties to both guys to keep it even. And even then, there were still tons of power plays for both teams in this game. But very interesting to see how the refs tried to handle this game and with the way things went.
Yeah, they did a terrible job trying to police this game. And ultimately, that's why you get the McDonagh hit. That's why you get the Sam Bennett hit, the players trying to police this game themselves. People are going to say, and rightfully so, that this was one of the greatest hockey games of the decade. Not talking about the 2020s, the past 10 years. Ultimately, part of the reason for that is because we had some of those dangerous plays. You really want to get those dangerous plays out of the game. So the referees, they really tried. They're like, oh, we're just going to make it a 4-on-4 now, and you know, what are you going to do now? Ultimately, the answer was we're going to keep getting in each other's faces. We're going to keep laying predatory hits on each other, and there's nothing you can do to stop it. And that's really a problem when it comes to the NHL playoffs as a whole, but specifically in this game. It was just awful.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. It was not ideal, and I feel bad, honestly, also for the refs that have to referee this game next time because there's so many eyes and so much fighting going on. It is a tough situation. But before we wrap up this video, we do have one fan question to quickly talk about. By the way, if you guys want to have some fan questions for us to talk about on this video, let us know down in the comments below. We love to hear any and all thoughts you have on these games. You can follow us on all of our social media platforms, which I will link all down below. We are most active on Twitter at Bay_Bolt. So please do give us a follow. Check it out. Gage did a great job, my brother, for covering the game last night. So it was a lot of fun watching him doing that. But give us a follow. We get live game coverage and we ask questions for you guys for us to talk about on these shows all the time. But the one question we have comes from Connor McMinn, and he says, "Is Point and Kucherov one of, if not the best duo in the NHL?" Well, Kucherov alone is the best player in the NHL at this point, really. But yes, I mean, these two guys are fantastic. I would even say maybe Kucherov and Stamkos are the duo just on that power play alone. But it is ridiculous how good these are. And I think it was Brian who mentioned this on the broadcast. He said that this was a couple games ago when Cooch was still out. You could kind of notice how teams were defending Braden Point better because typically Point loves to come into the zone very quickly and drop the puck off to a guy like Nikita Kucherov, and teams have a hard time following both those guys smoothly into the zone. And now that you see them back together, it's happening again where teams just have such a hard time keeping up with a speedy Braden Point, and then Kucherov just kind of hanging out in the background, getting the puck and putting off a ridiculous shot.
Yeah, you did start to notice at the end of the season, Point wasn't putting up the amount of points that he normally does. He was being defended a lot better. And again, these were lesser teams that most of them weren't in the playoffs, but he was being defended really well against Florida in those final two games. Ultimately, you add a top 10, let's say, player in Kucherov, and the whole dynamic changes. Are they the best duo in the NHL? Regular season, maybe not. You got Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. You got Brad Marchand and David Pastrnak. Yeah, I know. You got Alexander Barkov and Jonathan Huberdeau of Florida, which is another thing that the Lightning need to make sure that they hammer home. But in the playoffs, I don't think there's much question. You saw it last year. Like Andre Palat was third in team scoring last year, I believe. He was either third or fourth. And he had 11 goals and he had 18 points. Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov almost doubled him because they were that much better than their line mate.
Crazy.
And we love Andre Palat on this channel. Like he's one of our favorite players. Nowhere close to Braden Point and Nikita Kucherov. So are they the best duo in the playoffs? They very well might be, honestly.
Yeah, no question about it. So I think that pretty much does it. Unless Michael, you have anything else to add that you want to recap before we go into the outro here?
Yes, the NBC broadcast, I'm so glad that they are not getting the rights anymore. I do not remember who was calling the game. Mixed up Andre Vasilevsky and Sergei Bobrovsky many times. I understand both of them are Russian, but they're not even wearing the same colors. So
Yeah,
how you mess that up? The new score bug looked absolutely horrendous.
it's so crammed
The
together.
I don't understand it. I don't like it. The one they had before, I actually quite liked. Like it was normal. The color commentary from I believe it was Keith Jones was absolutely awful. Brian Boucher was okay, which is why he's going to be the new, I believe it's ABC color commentator, but it might be ESPN or TNT at this case. Who knows? I'm going to be so happy when this company does not get to broadcast NHL games anymore because they ultimately don't deserve it.
Yeah, no, you're right, and I hate that we have to say that because you don't want that for the game of hockey, but it's true. I mean, NBC really is. I thankfully did not have to listen to the NBC broadcast, which is why I almost forgot about it. I was listening to Bally Sports, obviously, and Dave Randorf do the game, who is absolutely fantastic. By the way, I love Dave Randorf. If you haven't seen our interview with Dave Randorf, I linked it up in the top right corner, but do go check that out. It's a great interview. He's an awesome guy. But I digress. But yeah, I heard about people talking about that on the NBC feed and mixing up the goaltenders, which How do you do that? It's not even like they have the same numbers and they're right next to each other all the time. They're on opposite ends of the ice. I just don't. That's a pretty big mistake to make at high. And listen, everybody makes mistakes, but apparently it happened a couple of times as well. So it is unfortunate. But the good news, as you mentioned, this is NBC's last year. They're done after this, and then we're going to ESPN and TNT. I think are the two main ones that we're having, which is going to be huge for the NHL. That's really really great. That especially ESPN is going to be talking about hockey. They're already kind of doing it more now with the anticipation that they're getting ready for next season. So it's the future is bright for the NHL ahead, which is a very good news. But guys, that's going to do it for us in today's video. The next game, the Tampa Bay Lightning will be playing the Florida Panthers again in game number 2. That is taking place on Tuesday at 8 o'clock p.m. That game also in Sunrise. So make sure to subscribe to the channel and ring the bell for notifications so you come right back here after that game on Tuesday. We'll have another game recap for you, recapping that game as well. But hopefully when we talk to you guys next, the Tampa Bay Lightning are up 2-0 in the series, currently up 1-0. A great start for the Lightning, a fantastic game. This is going to be a fun one. It's going to be stressful for Lightning fans, but it's going to be a fun one. So for Jake Ricker, for Michael Wax, thank you guys so much for listening. I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your day. And remember, your Tampa Bay Lightning are your defending Stanley Cup champions.
Go Bolt.